Alrighty, welcome to MTG Anonymous. We are back with another MTG Arena Brawl Precon review. So, this is my third favorite of the four, which means the last one will obviously be my least favorite. We are playing Savage Hunter. This one focuses on sacrificing permanents. I do not like sacrificing permanents, but the cards in this deck allow you to gain value from it. So I love value, and that's what makes me like this deck. So piloting this deck as the commander is Corvold Fey Cursed King for 2, a black, a red, and a green. You get a Dragon Noble legendary creature. It's a 4/4, has flying, and when it enters the battlefield or attacks, sacrifice another permanent. When you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Corvold and draw a card. Why I like this card is because it says a permanent. So you can sacrifice tokens, you can sacrifice lands if you think you have too many. You can never have enough lands, but regardless, if you think you have enough lands, you can sacrifice them, and you draw a card. So the card you sacrificed gets replaced by another card. I like it. First, we only have one drop. It's a new artifact. It's Witch's Oven. Tap, sacrifice a creature, create a food token. If the sacrificed creature's toughness was 4 or greater, create 2 food tokens instead. I like this card. If you're going to lose your card to removal, or if you're going to lose it to combat, you can sacrifice it, and then you gain something from it. Either 1 food token or 2 food tokens. And then food tokens, say, tap, pay 3 mana, I'm pretty sure. It's either 3 or 2, I gotta relook at that. But you gain 3 life. Or there are other things that you can do with food tokens, so there are lots of cards that are going to involve them. Next we have our 2 drops. We have Orzhov Enforcer, Priest of Forgotten Gods, Goblin Crater Maker, Paradise Druid, Pollen Bright Druid, Woodland Champion, Dreadhorde Invasion, Mask of Immolation, Arcane Signet, and Golden Egg. First off, Orzhov Enforcer. For 1 and a black, you get a 1/2 human rogue with Death Touch and Afterlife 1. Why I like this in the deck is because you sacrifice it and you instantly get a 1/1 white and black spirit token with flying. So you sacrifice it, you get to draw a card, and then you get another token to replace it. I like it. The only thing is you don't replace the Death Touch though. But you replace the Death Touch with evasion. So evasion for evasion, or relative evasion, is pretty nice. Next is Priest of Forgotten Gods. For 1 and a black, you get a 1/2 human cleric. Tap, sacrifice 2 other creatures. Any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. You add black and draw a card. So you get a free sacrifice outlet here, technically, since you have to tap. And then I don't know if you wouldn't want to lose 2 life, so it would be your opponent. And then your opponent will also sacrifice a creature, and then you add 2 black and draw a card. So if you have your commander out, you sacrificed 2 permanents, so you draw 2 cards, you get 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and you draw an additional card. So 3 cards for tapping and sacrificing 2 creatures, especially since it doesn't say non-token creature. I like it. Next, Goblin Crater Maker. For 1 and a red, creature Goblin Warrior. For 1, sacrifice Goblin Crater Maker and choose 1. Goblin Crater Maker deals 2 damage to target creature, or destroy target colorless non-land permanent. Why do I like this? Karn. You can destroy Karn, and that's all. I don't like Karn. You can also destroy Golos, but regardless, it's also another sacrifice, so if your commander's out, sacrifice it, destroy an artifact or colorless non-land permanent. Or you could deal 2 damage to a creature, and then you get to draw a card. And you get to put +1/+1 counter on your commander. I like it. Paradise Druid for 1 and a green. You get a 2/1 Elf Druid. Paradise Druid has hexproof as long as it's untapped. And then you tap and add 1 mana of any color. We've seen it in lots of other decks, but we gotta go over hexproof. Hexproof says a player or permanent with hexproof can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Next, Pollen Bright Druid, another elf druid for 1 and a green. It's a 1/1 though. When it enters the battlefield, choose one, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, or proliferate. Why do I like either of those? You can put a +1/+1 counter on a creature that doesn't have one, make it a little bigger, or you could proliferate and make every creature with a +1/+1 counter bigger. Or if you have any planeswalkers, I don't think there's only one in the deck, I'm pretty sure, so, but I still like it. Next we got Woodland Champion for 1 and a green. You get a 2/2 elf scout. Whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, put that many +1/+1 counters on Woodland Champion. There are lots of ways to make counters with this deck, or make tokens with this deck, so it can get really big really quick. And then Pollen Bright Druid can proliferate it. So next we have Dreadhorde Invasion for 1 and a black. You get an enchantment at the beginning of your upkeep, lose 1 life and amass 1. And then whenever a zombie token you control with power 6 or greater attacks, it gains lifelink until end of turn. I'm pretty sure it's the only way to make a zombie token in this deck, so whatever. But the amass I like. It says put a +1/+1 counter on an army you control. That will change for the number of mass. If you have a mass 2, you put 2, 3, 3, etc., etc. If you don't control one, create a 0/0 black zombie army creature token first. And then lifelink, damage dealt by a creature, planeswalker, or spell with lifelink causes its controller to gain that much life. It's pretty good. You can gain life. You also can have a creature to sacrifice to Grovold every turn, so that way you don't have to actually sacrifice your real creatures. Next we have Mask of Immolation again. It was in the previous deck, but we'll go over it again. For 1 and a red, you get a equipment. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token, then attach Mask of Immolation to it. Equipped creature gets sacrificed this creature. It deals 1 damage to any target. Equip 2 is important because when you sacrifice a permanent, you get a +1/+1 counter and draw. So, I like it. And you get a 1/1 elemental token, so you get sacrificed to Corvold. If you don't sacrifice it to this equipment, I like it. Next we have Arcane Signet. Again, it's in every single one of these decks, so I'd call it a Brawl staple. For 2, you get an artifact that says tap, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Important. Next, Golden Egg for 2. This is also, I think, in every deck, if I remember correctly. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. For 1 and tap, sacrifice Golden Egg, add 1 mana of any color. For 2, tap it, sacrifice it, gain 3 life. So, once again, sacrifice it, draw a card, get a +1/+1 counter. Next, we have our 3 drops, Plague Crafter, Krinko, 10th Street, Kingpin, Evolution Sage, Thrashing Brontodon, Judith the Scourge, Diva, Mayhem Devil, Leyline Prowler, Scavvy Hunter, and Rhythm of the Wild. Plague Crafter. For 2 and a black, whenever it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature card, creature or planeswalker. Each player who can't discards a card. Once again, sacrifice, draw a card, get a +1/+1 counter. And then also, if you don't have anything you want to sacrifice to it, when you play it, you can sacrifice it. It doesn't matter. Or you can sacrifice a 1/1 from any of these things. Next, we have Krinko 10th Street Kingpin for 2 and a red. It's a 1/2 goblin. Everyone knows this goblin, but he's got a new iteration in War of the Spark. When it enters the battle, when it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it, then create a number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to Krinko's power. So, attack, put a +1/+1 counter. The first time you get 2 goblins. And then the next time you get 3 and 4 and so on and so on. What makes that awesome is you have goblin tokens to sacrifice to your commander or to the Witch's Oven. Evolution Sage for 2 and a green. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, proliferate. Why is proliferate important? Because you got +1/+1 counters on your commander. I like it. Thrashing Bronodon for 1, a green and a green. It's a 3/4 dinosaur, and then pay 1, sacrifice it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Why is that important? Well, because it's a sacrifice, which I'll say it again. When you sacrifice a permanent, put +1/+1 counter on Corvold and draw a card. And you get to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. Since there's a deck that likes enchantments, important. Or importante. Judith the Scourge Diva for 1, a black and a red. You get a Human Shaman 2/2. Other creatures you control get +1/+0. And when a non-creature you control dies, Judith the Scourge Diva deals 1 damage to any target. So there's not as many creatures as there could be in this deck, but regardless, whenever you sacrifice one that's not a token, you can deal an extra damage, so I like it. Also, the +1/+0 is not ignored, especially since you make tokens in this deck. Next is Mayhem Devil for 1, a black and a red. You get a 3/3 Devil. When a player sacrifices a permanent, Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target. Why I like this card is because we're going to sacrifice a permanent every turn, at least 1. And so we can deal damage to our opponent's 1/1s, or to our opponent's face, or to their commander, and then that makes it less likely that they'll try to block. Or we can sacrifice enough things, maybe, that we'll be able to kill creatures on our opponent's side. Next is Leyline Prowler, one of my favorite cards. For 1 in a black and a green, you get a 2/3 with Death Touch and Lifelink, and then tap, add 1 mana of any color. So we have to go over Death Touch and Lifelink this time. Death Touch, any amount of damage a source deals with Death Touch to a creature is enough to destroy it. And then Lifelink, damage dealt by a creature, planeswalker, or spell with Lifelink also causes its controller to gain that much life. I think we went over that one time before, but regardless, I think I should have gone over it again. Maybe I was wrong. Yeah, we went over Death Touch and Lifelink, but going over it again doesn't hurt. And then the tap is pretty nice. You can have as a blocker. And then I really only use Leyline Prowler for instant spells, seeing as I like that I can block with the Death Touch Lifelinker. It makes people less likely to swing with that big stuff. Next is Savvy Hunter. For 1, a black and a green, whenever Savvy Hunter attacks or blocks, create a food token. And then sacrifice 2 food tokens, or, well, 2 foods, it does not say token. Sacrifice 2 foods, draw a card. Why that's important, you get something that you can sack, and then you can sack it. It makes tokens, and that's why I like this. Next, Rhythm of the Wild, another card I like. For 1, a red and a green. It's an enchantment, says creatures, spells you control can't be countered. That's important. And the non-token creatures you control have Riot. Let's go over Riot. Riot, a creature with Riot enters the battlefield with your choice of a +1/+1 counter or haste. And then haste, when it enters the battlefield, you can attack or tap it. As soon as it enters the battlefield, it comes under your control. So this is good because you can give +1/+1 counters to all your creatures, and then proliferate with Pollen Bright Druid, or Pollen Bright Druid, or the Evolution Sage. It's pretty good. And then making our spells not counterable is important because we don't have ways to counter other creatures, and there's not many ways to return cards from your graveyard in this. So next we have 4 drops: Vindictive Vampire, Golgari Find Broker, Bacon to a Pie, Angrith Captain of Chaos, and Death Sprout. We'll start on the bottom. Death Sprout, for 1, a black and a green. You get an instant, destroy target creature, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Removal, instant speed removal, and you get a land from it. It's pretty good. Angrath, Captain of Chaos, for 2, a black, for 2 and Rakdos, 2 Rakdos, excuse me. Creatures you control have menace, and then -2, amass 2. It has 5 loyalty when it comes in. Amass 2, we've already gone over that once. The only difference between it and Dreadhorde Invasion had amass 1, this has amass 2. So this one, you would put 2 +1/+1 counters on an army you control. And then if you don't have one, create a 0/0 black zombie first. And then Menace, a creature with Menace, can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. What makes that awesome is because if you have creatures with Death Touch, you can destroy both creatures since Death Touch only needs 1 damage to a creature to destroy it. Also, it makes combat really tricky, seeing as they have to count their creatures correctly. If they only have 1 creature, and we only have 1 creature, we can attack for free. Next is Bake into a Pie. Destroy target creature, create a food token. Food tokens are important, seeing as you can sacrifice them to themselves, or you can use other effects to sacrifice them and do other things. And then when you sacrifice them, put a +1/+1 counter on Corvold and draw a card if Corvold's out. Next is Golgari Fine Broker. For black, green, you get a 3/4 Elf Shaman. When Golgari Fine Broker enters the battlefield, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. There are not many other ways to do that in this deck, so when you play this, make sure you pick something good. And then return target permanent card, meaning only creatures, artifacts, enchantments. Next, Vindictive Vampire. For 3 and a black, it's a 2/3 vampire. Whenever another creature you control dies, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain 1 life. Why do I like this? Krinko. Krinko can make a lot of tokens, and then we just need to find a way to sack them or swing with them every turn. And then Corvold trigger, well, not Corvold, Vindictive Vampire's trigger will allow us to deal 1 damage to each opponent and gain a life. Also, when you sacrifice a creature to Corvold, when it attacks, you get to do the same thing. I like it. I really like it in this deck. That's it for the 4-drops. Next 5s, Sir Conrad the Grim. We've seen this already once. Raptious Dragon, Keeper of Fables, and Moldvine Reclamation. Sir Conrad the Grim, whenever a creature enters the graveyard from anywhere, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. And then for 1 in the black, mill 1. Each player mills 1. It's a 5/4 Knight Human for 3 a black and a black. We've already gone over this card once, so. The only reason I like it is because you do a lot of sacrificing, and it does not say token, so. Whenever a token or a non-token creature dies, I like it. Raptious Dragon for 4 and a red. You get a 3/3 dragon. And it has flying. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 treasure tokens. So this gives you 2 tokens, and those 2 tokens can sacrifice themselves. Treasure token says tap, sacrifice the treasure, and then add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So, you can make your commander 2 times bigger and draw 2 cards, or get 2 +1/+1 counters, not 2 times bigger, excuse me, and draw 2 cards when this enters. Now granted, only sacrifice the treasures if you have something you can do with them, but regardless, having 2 things that you can sacrifice, I like it. Keeper of Fables for 3 a green and a green, you get a 4/5 cat. Whenever 1 or more non-human creatures you control deal combat to a player, draw a card. A large majority of these are not humans, so I think Judith maybe? Yeah, Judith is, and Sir Conrad is, but the rest of them are not, so only 2 creatures can't trigger this in this deck. Moldvine Reclamation for 3 a black and a green. You get an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, you gain a life and draw a card. I like drawing cards. I like value. I sacrifice a token, I get to gain a life and draw a card. Perfect. Incidental life gain's pretty good, especially when you want things to be sacrificed in this deck. Incidental life gain's good. Next we have our big ones. These are actually not all the same converted mana cost, so we'll just go over them. First is Find and Finality for 2 Golgari, or it's a sorcery. Return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Good. And then Finality for 4 a black and a green. You may put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control. Then creatures get -4/-4. Why is that important? Because you have cards that are just barely on the line that would survive, like Let's see, Leyline Prowler, you can give it the +2/+2, and then when everything gets -4/-4, it doesn't die. Your commander, you don't have to worry about. When it enters, it's going to be a 5/5 since it sacrifices on enter. But really, Leyline Prowler might be the only one you can tell. You can save Savvy Hunter too. That one's pretty important. Golgari Fine Broker, not really. You don't really care about that. Sir Conrad, you could also save. More than likely, you'd use it for the fine, so that way you can pull creatures out. Pull creatures out of your graveyard and put them in your hand. Azani Thousand-Eyed for 2 a black, a green, and a green. You get a 2/3 elf shaman. Has Undergrowth. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token for each creature card in your graveyard. You can make a couple. There are quite a few creatures in this deck. For black and a green, sacrifice another creature, you gain 1 life and draw a card. And then why is that important? Because when you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Corvold and draw a card. Incidental life gain and value, all in one package. Bloodsoak Altar for 4 black and a black. Tap, pay 2, discard a card, sacrifice a creature, create a 5/5 demon creature token with flying. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. We were always going to have a creature to sacrifice in this deck. Will we have cards to discard? Maybe, maybe not. Since our commander allows us to draw cards, it makes it a little easier. Then we get a 5/5 demon with flying. Who doesn't want a 5/5 demon with flying? It's good. Taste of Death for 4 black and a black. Each player sacrifices 3 creatures. You create 3 food tokens. Why is that important? Because that's 6 triggers you'll get with Corvold. Well, up to 6 triggers. And then you get 3 food tokens, which you can sacrifice them to effects too. Thorn Mammoth for 5 green and a green. Enters the battlefield. It's a 6/6 elephant with trample. Whenever it enters the battlefield or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Thorn Mammoth fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Fighting is important. You can get commanders out of the way, since I don't think there are no commanders in this set that can beat it coming out initially. So you'd be able to destroy commanders as soon as it comes out. So basically it's a 7 mana cost removal. And then that's it. Are there any new lands? Crypt Cave. Crypt Caves, you can tap it for colorless mana or pay 1, tap and sacrifice it, draw a card. Activates this ability only if you control 5 or more lands. Why is this important? Because you're sacrificing a land. So you get to sacrifice, when you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Corvold and draw a card. Evolving Wilds is also in this deck, and I don't think it's in the other ones. It also sacrifices, so it also triggers Corvold. That's it for this video. We only got 1 more review to go, and then I don't think I'm gonna do. I said in the first video that I was gonna do plays with Brawl, but I don't like the precons because everyone has them. I like to make my own, so I'll be working on deck text for Brawl cards or Brawl decks of my own. If you like the video, like, comment, or subscribe, or preferably do all 3. That'd be amazing. In the meantime, I will see you later.